and welcome to Headstrong Minds. My name is Brian Costello and I'm here having more positive conversations with you about mental health. And today we are going to talk about something very specific. We are talking today about anxiety attacks, panic attacks. I said something very specific and then gave you three different things that we were going to talk about. But to me, they're actually all the same thing. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Anxiety is one of the things, or the biggest mental health problems that we have just now. In the UK, where I'm based, there are about 8% of the population are said to be experiencing an anxiety problem to the stage of it being a mental health issue. That means that in the UK just now, there are 5.5 million people experiencing anxiety as a mental health issue. I've got to admit, in my experience of talking to people about mental health, I think it might actually be a few more. But do you know what? That's what the statistics say. So I'm just going to go on what the stats say and go, high five statistics, brothers and sisters. If you say it's 8%, you go for it, because you probably looked at more numbers rather than me going, yeah, I reckon that there's probably this many, because I really don't know. But they say about 5.5 million people in this country, which is a massive amount of people being affected by it. So what actually is anxiety? Well, anxiety is the protection mechanism for the mind. I'm sure you have heard countless people talk about it. Oh, it's the protection mechanism for the mind. When we were a caveman and you were walking along and a bush started to rustle, your mind had to work out whether it needed to fight or flight. And we'll come on back to those words later on. And therefore it had to be ready. So anxiety is this primal defense mechanism, ready to protect you from anything it needs to protect you from. When anxiety kicks in, anxiety is invariably about something that hasn't happened yet. If it's already happening, you're just scared. Anxiety is always about a fear of the future. It's always a fear of something that hasn't happened yet. So your mind is ultimately making shit up. That's the technical description of it, in a bid to try and protect you from a thing that your mind has taken in all of this different information and said, given the balance of probability, there is a chance that there's a saber-toothed tiger in that bush. Now, I've got to admit, these days, if you're walking through the streets of Glasgow, my hometown, then the chances of a saber-toothed tiger are pretty low. The chances of a mad drunk man with a bottle of Buckfast tonic wine, however, that's a little bit bigger, and that sometimes needs more protection than a saber-toothed tiger, depending on what's happening. Although I must admit, Glasgow is a very friendly city. Please come visit us, visit Glasgow. We are fantastic. It's a lovely city. We're really friendly. We have great parties. That's it. Glasgow Tourist Board can now get in touch with me about any commission based on that little referral. But when we're walking through the streets, or when we're going through our lives, what our mind is doing is it's taking that balance of probability. It looks at all the different things that are happening and ultimately adds them all together to say whether or not we should feel comfortable or whether we should feel uncomfortable. And when we feel uncomfortable, if it's about something that might be a danger to us, then it kicks in this anxiety response. It's an exceptionally useful thing. Think about how many things it's held you back from. Think about all the things that it stopped you doing. Like that time when you were going to climb up that wall and then you realised that there was like a 20-foot drop on the other side of it, but you just held off. That time that you were going to run after your best friend in school, but you realised your shoelace was untied. That time when you were going to go into your chemistry exam and just breeze it without studying, and your wee voice in your mind went, you better not do that, you better study. These are good uses of anxiety. But how it tips between just those normal anxieties and something that becomes a mental health problem is actually really interesting. But since we're on it, let's talk about these levels of anxiety. Because one of the things that people lose is the idea and the understanding that actually anxiety is a pretty useful thing to have. So by understanding that there's different levels of anxiety, we can start to understand it. So let's have a little look at the different levels we can get when we experience our anxiety. Now, just for simplicity, I am going to split it into 5 different levels. Level 1 is very simple, and level 1 we're going to say is the lowest level. A level 1 anxiety is about something very minor. A level 1 anxiety could be something like, where did I park the car? You know that feeling you get when you leave after you leave a shopping centre and you think, uh-oh, I have absolutely no idea whereabouts in this car park I have actually left the thing. And you have to walk around like pushing the button on your car keys in the hope that actually what your car will do is it will click or beep or call on you from a distance going, I'm over here. This is where you left me. That's a level 1 anxiety. The anxiety that you might not quite make your bus in time. That can probably become something bigger depending on what's on the other side of that bus journey. The worry that you might not be able to get to the bar before the bar closes. That type of thing is a level 1 anxiety. It's pretty minor, doesn't really affect your life very much. We then go up into a level 2 anxiety. Now, level 2 anxiety is getting into pretty big things, but the interesting thing about level 2 anxiety is it's a normal response and it goes away once the danger is gone. So what do I mean by that? Well, imagine you've been asked to do a presentation in work or in school or wherever you are. So you're going to have to stand up or sit there in front of lots of people and speak. Well, this can be a level 2 anxiety for lots of people. So it's pretty intense and it can get pretty big. And basically what's happening is your mind's trying to protect you. As you listen to your mind, you'll hear it say things like, oh, you're going to make a fool of yourself, you're going to trip over your words, you're going to say something stupid, people are going to know more than you. This is all, as we just said, it's a fear of the future. It's using balance of probability to say, well, this might happen. It's never happened before, but it worries that it might. So it's trying to get you to protect yourself from that by running completely a different direction. So you might even think about phoning in sick to work, going, no, I'm very sorry, I've got a terrible flu. And they go, you sound okay. And I'm like, oh, no, absolutely dying here. So I am absolutely dying, can't come in, sorry, presentation's off. Oh, well, what am I going to do about that? Now, this is like a level 2 anxiety. And the reason it's not even higher is because the thing is that once it's passed, this is the type of anxiety that people quite often talk about when they'll say things like, oh, I worried so much about it. But when it started, I was totally fine. Like you used to worry about standing up, and then once you get into it, you're actually like, I'm quite enjoying this. This is quite fun. And all of a sudden, people can't get you off stage. You worry about singing that song that you have to sing. And the next thing you know, you're like, does anybody have any requests? Anybody want to put in something? I can do Hey Big Spender. I can even do Mac the Knife in a swing style if you particularly want. And all of a sudden, they can't get the microphone off you. This is a level 2 anxiety. It's pretty intense, but actually it disappears very, very quickly. Now, once we get up into level 3 anxiety, now we're talking about things that are starting to affect your life. So when we talk about level 3 anxiety, these are things that start to affect you every day. And here's some ways to understand it. It can affect your heart rate. It can interrupt your sleep. It can make you forgetful. It can make you tired. Sometimes even it can affect your appetite. This is when it starts to get into being an issue. And it's there all the time. And one of the most common forms of that anxiety, we use a different name for. We call it stress. Now, the thing about workplace stress is that workplace stress is seen as normal. If you met somebody in your work now and you went up and said, how are you doing? And they went, fine. Finished all my work, earlier on today. So I'm going to wander, have a couple of chats to a couple of people. And then what I'll do is I'll maybe hit back to the desk and I'll get started on some stuff for tomorrow. But actually all my projects are fully up to date. You'd be thinking, they're mental. How did they manage to do that? And the reason that they've managed to do it is because they're not stressed. And that is also, they've maybe got a good job where their bosses don't push them so hard that they try and break them. But for many people, we take that stress as a natural part of our day-to-day being, when actually what it's tipped over into is it's tipped over into a constant anxiety. It's underlying, never goes to an anxiety attack, but it's just there, nipping away at you. You know that wee voice inside your head going, you're not going to get all that done. You're not going to get all that done. You're not going to get all that done. They're going to find out who you are, and they're going to see that you don't know how to do this job, and then you're going to get sacked, and then you're going to live in a bin, and all of a sudden what happens is it's like that, and it's just at you. Now, this is a level 3 anxiety. Now, when that tips over, and this happens to many people that we meet at HeadStrong, is it tips over into a level 4 anxiety, a type of anxiety that we might refer to as an anxiety attack. So an anxiety attack is when your anxiety starts to tip over into these prolonged periods of fear. They can be exceptionally intense and hugely paralysing. I mean, this is the point at which somebody's sitting in a meeting, sitting there just, everything's fine, and then the little voice comes in and says, you need to leave, you need to leave. And all of a sudden they will actually break their own values in order to protect themselves. So they may stand up in the middle of a meeting and leave. Or have you ever had the misfortune to see someone walk out on stage and entirely freeze and just stand there and then just walk off? I've only ever seen it once, but it was horrible to watch because you could see what was happening. That is an anxiety attack. Can I just say to anybody that's worried about presentation skills that is very, very rare. The chances of that happening is exceptionally low. So please don't worry about doing presentations. You'll be fine. Go get them, Tiger. You're going to be brilliant. And don't put too much information on your PowerPoint slides, or it'll overwhelm your brain. And definitely don't write a script, because that will also overwhelm your brain. But it's not a presentation skills training. This is about something else. Now, there are 4 different types of anxiety attack because there's 4 different responses to fear. And when we start to look at these, now I'm going to say to you, I'm not going to go into these in detail, but we do have another video called The 4 Different Panic Attacks that you can go and watch just now if you want to. Well, don't watch it just now. Watch the end of this one. And then once you've watched the end of this one, you can jump to the 4 different types of panic attack, and then you can watch that one. But just to cover them very briefly, we have 4 responses to fear that correspond to the 4 different panic attacks. Those 4 different responses to fear are fight and flight, which you've probably heard of before, and then we've got another 2, fold and freeze. Now, I call these first 2, fight and flight, the active responses, and then fold and freeze is the passive responses to fear. What do I mean by that? Well, fight and flight tend to be active. We want to do something about it. And actually, I would say that even these passive responses to fear are going to take us into level 5, but we'll get there in just a little second. So fight and flight is basically either the want to run away, which is one of the most common types of anxiety attack. People just want to run. People want to get out of the room. They want to get away from the situation. In fact, they might even avoid it entirely before they even get there. And then we've got fight, the one that people very often don't spot as a panic attack, which is when people get really annoyed and people get angry and raging and they'll lose their temper. And all of a sudden when they lose their temper, people go, oh, they're so angry. But they're not angry, they're scared. You know, when I don't know if you're a dog person, right? You might, I'm hoping you are a dog person. I'm a dog person. If you are a dog person, then you'll know that if you're out walking your dog, and you'll know this if this might be your dog, and another dog starts barking at your dog and maybe even spinning about on its lead, very rarely is that dog got some sort of temper issue. It's very rare for that dog actually just to be an angry dog. Quite often what it is a terrified dog. But what it's doing is it's showing its teeth and it's barking because it's going, back off, get back from me. It's wanting to attack first before it's attacked. We're the same. I'm not comparing you to an absolutely crazy Cocker Spaniel. That's not what I'm comparing you to. But what I am saying is that our mind responds the same to its emotion. That when we get scared, sometimes we want to bite first and we want to attack. But the problem with that is that very rarely gets us anywhere and quite often ends us up in an anxiety loop, which is something that we'll talk about in just a few minutes. So this is fight and flight, our 2 active forms of anxiety attack. But then we can tip into our 2 passive. And when we hit the 2 passive forms of anxiety attack, we can actually call these a panic attack. Now, a panic attack is the top level. And what I mean by passive is that, you see, the thing in an anxiety attack is you're still mildly resourced. And what I mean by that is you can still think, I need to leave, there's the door, I need to get out. So you can still have a certain control of your faculties. But when you hit a level 5 panic attack, all of a sudden you go into fold and freeze, or fold or freeze, and all of a sudden you're in a completely different realm. You no longer function. So fold, for instance, is when somebody just like burst into tears and they're just like so upset and they don't know what to do, and they are literally an emotional puddle. They are just like all over the place and they just, I don't know what I want to do. And they might even say things to you like, I don't know what to do. And then freeze, which is, where they might even look as if they're not breathing when they're in a freeze panic attack because their mind is literally just shut down. They have no faculty left. They have no agency. They cannot be in control of their own faculties. And it is terrifying to be on the inside of one of them. You see, this is one of the things that people talk about with mental health, is that many of these things are hidden illnesses. Now, I'm not into, as you know if you've watched any of our videos, that these are illnesses in any way. These people that I'm talking about here, if you've ever experienced this, I want to promise you right now, you are not broken. What you are is stuck. Now, if we go back to that, let me explain what I mean by the fact that you're stuck. This is entirely hidden. It is entirely paralyzing. So if you're someone who's never experienced this and you're watching this video just now because maybe someone you love or care for or a colleague or a friend or somebody's experiencing anxiety and you're thinking, I'm going to study that a little bit, I'm going to watch into that and look into that, then as you watch this video, what I want you to know is that even though you can't see it on the outside, this person is ultimately hypnotized. They are in a place where, depending on which type of panic attack you are, and please go and watch that video on the 4 different types of panic attack where I tell you how to deal with them. If you are someone who needs to help someone that may occasionally trip in to these types of panic attacks. But what I want to tell you just now is I just want to tell you what it is that's actually happening. Now, all of these different 5 levels are fascinating, but they're also terrifying. And the thing about them is that they're entirely hidden. You could be sitting next to someone on the bus just now that's having a complete panic attack and you wouldn't even know. You could be driving next to someone who in their car is currently having an anxiety attack and you wouldn't even know. You could literally have spoken to colleagues or friends or family members in the last little while and you wouldn't even know that it's happening. And I'm going to come on to that later, but what I want to talk to you about is what's actually happening inside their mind. Now, I will say again, if you do want to help anybody with these panic attack types and anxiety attacks, please go and watch our video on the 4 different types of panic attack. It's really short, it's only about 5 minutes. But what I do is I'll take you through how to help and how to be a good helper in each of those situations. But for now, let's look at what's actually happening inside someone's mind when they're having a panic attack. Now, I must admit, right, I keep on using panic attack and anxiety attack now interchangeably, but you understand the difference, okay? So all we're talking about is the difference between somebody being active or passive. And I'd also take our level 3 friends into this and people who are just in general anxiety. The same thing is happening in all of these. It's just that the anxiety attack and the panic attack are just slowly shutting the person down at different levels. That's all it is. So what's happening inside their head? Well, as you know, you'll have heard me say this before if you've listened to any of the other videos. If you think about something like chewing on a piece of raw lemon, what will happen is your mouth will start to water. And that is absolutely key to everything we talk about here at Headstrong Minds. The reason for that is because what we're trying to show you is that mental health is an inside-out process. So basically, mental health happens in here and then it shows up out here. It's not actually the world that's making somebody anxious, it's their thoughts about the world. And that's really, really important. Is it a way? I like this, right? I show this description to my clients quite often, right? Imagine that there's like a wee you, right? A wee you sitting in the inside of your head, right? And they're sitting in a big chair like this. We might have mentioned this earlier on. You know, sitting in a big chair like this, and they've got this big red button on the arm of their chair. I wish you could see the arm of my chair. I don't have a red button on the arm of my chair, but you can imagine that there's an arm of a chair right here, and you can imagine there's a big red button on it, right? So I am now sitting inside your head. Now imagine that I am the anxious you. What's actually happening to someone who's in level 3, 4, 5 anxiety, so somebody who has lost their ability to regulate that level of anxiety, it's affecting their sleep, physiological symptoms such as their heartbeat, their breathing, thoughts, overthinking things, all of these different things. I'm going to just say, just to put in here, overthinking is a form of anxiety. People go, oh, I'm such an overthinker. You are anxious if you're overthinking, because I bet what you're doing is you're running what if, what if, what if, what if, and those what ifs are those precursors, those taking the balance of probability moments inside your mind where it tries to predict what's going to happen next. So it goes, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? Constantly running inside your head the thoughts about what will happen if we make you anxious. And this is the point. Imagine there's a you sitting in there. Now, what they see is they don't see reality. What they see is their little movie screen of reality. In fact, they're almost the programmer of that. So they sit inside, and if you imagine an anxious them, and they sit in there, and they've got like no nails, and they sit in there like this going, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And then very occasionally what they'll do is they'll go, oh my God, what was that? What was that? And they'll hit this big red button and all of your alarms will go off. And as they sit in there and go, what was that? What was that? Oh my God, it was just the microwave. Oh, it was the microwave beeping. Oh, thank goodness. Do you know what I thought it was? I thought it was a bomb. Oh my God, what was that? What was that? Oh jeez. Okay, it was just the doorbell. Do you know what I thought it was? I thought it was someone coming to murder me. That's what I thought it was. Oh jeez. Oh my God, what was that? What was that? Oh jeez, it's just my mum. Do you know what? I thought it was someone here to judge me and tell me what a terrible person I am for that thing I did when I was 14 years old. Oh my God. This is genuinely how some people live their lives. With them inside their heads just constantly hitting this emergency button, putting their whole system into full-blown anxiety about simple things. This tends to be the overthinker. You'll say, oh, I'm terrible. This thing will happen, and then all of a sudden I'll overthink it. And the way to now imagine it is that this them is sort of sitting in there like this, just hitting this button, hammering the crap out of it in a bid to try and get them to pay attention to the possible danger that they might be in, when actually all they're doing is sitting in work, getting on with stuff just like everybody else. But the mind doesn't think that, and that's key. And this brings us back to the lemon thing. You see, what happens inside our heads is that our heads are constantly running these pictures. And if those pictures are anxiety-based, the mind stops being able to tell the difference between something that is actually rationally going to happen and something that might happen. And this brings us into a really interesting thought about thinking. I know that sounds really cool, doesn't it? A thought about thinking. Let's think about thinking. That could be like a wee show, like, hi, my name is Brian Costello. Welcome to Thinking About Thinking. Tonight, we are speaking to the great philosopher, Gerard McDufftown. No idea where that came from. But no, that's not what we're doing at all. But thinking about thinking is something that we have to do, because actually there are two different forms of thinking. You, at the moment, as you watch this, are doing two different types of thinking. Thinking type number one is rational thought. And this is one of the reasons why people get into problems, because they look for a rational explanation for themselves feeling anxious. And the rational explanation is, it must be something out there. It must be the outside world that makes me feel anxious, because otherwise, why would I feel anxious? Because it makes no sense. So we spend lots of time looking at the world going, is it that makes me anxious? Is it that? I'm totally triggered by this thing. Is it this that makes me anxious? But because of how fear works, what happens is that fear, fight, flight, fold, freeze, whichever one you show, probably a collection of all four, is that what it does is it begins to shrink your world. Because it says, well, that thing over there, that's a horrible thing and I don't like that, and it might make me anxious because I was anxious in its presence before, so I'm going to take that away. So for many people, this is how they stop going to work as regularly. Sometimes if they're younger, they'll stop going to school, they'll limit their friendship contact, they'll limit all sorts of things in their lives because they're like, well, I was anxious there, so therefore this must be a thing. Now, one of the most common diagnoses of this, because of this thought, this rational thought that it must be something outside, is that people come to us at HeadStrong and they'll say, my doctor has told me I have agoraphobia. Now, agoraphobia is, as many of you will know, a fear of open spaces. But actually, the person isn't scared of open spaces at all. This is the key to being able to help someone with their anxiety. Anxiety is not rational. The thing is that anxiety is happening in a second type of thought. And that second type of thought is your emotional thought. And that's where this person sits here with the big emergency button, like whacking the crap out of it every 2 seconds, going, oh my God, you're in danger. And when the microwave beeps, or the dog barks, or somebody walks past the street, or I heard a car. What was that? What was that? Did I hear a car there? Is that car coming to kidnap me and take me away? Oh my God. When actually, no, funnily enough, it's an Amazon delivery. Like you expected, because they texted you earlier. But the mind goes, oh my God, but it could have been someone that was here to kidnap me. I am just fortunate that this time it wasn't. And that type of thinking is entirely irrational. And this is the issue with our mind, is that this irrational thinking, as I call it, more emotional thinking, that happens at the back of your head, is the thinking that causes you to feel. We don't feel off rational thought. It just is. It's just about observing the world and doing all this type of stuff. The reason that we get into problems is because what we do is we take emotions and we apply them to that outside world. So therefore, when a certain thing happens, then what we do is we attach a meaning to that, an emotion to that, and that emotion is what we feel. Do you want a classic example, which in its way is a form of anxiety? How are you with spiders, for instance? I promise I'm not going to flash up any pictures of them. I wouldn't be that nasty. But if you think about a spider, for instance, what do you start to feel? And if you started to feel fight, flight, fold, or freeze, so I'm going to attack it with a shoe, or I'm going to run out of the house, or oh my God, no spiders, or like that, whichever one of those four responses you just had, then you're in an anxiety mode about spiders. But here's the thing. Irrational thinking, you know that it's daft to be scared of spiders. Well, it depends. If you're watching this at the moment in Australia, absolutely not. You go for it, my Aussie brothers and sisters. I was going to attempt an Australian accent there. I genuinely was. Did you see it? Did you see it for a moment? You saw my eyes go, and then I went, nah, I'm not going to try it. It's rubbish. It's absolutely atrocious, so I'm not even going to try it. I can do an Irish one, can't quite do an Australian one. You end up being somewhere around South Africa to India. That's kind of normally where it ends up sometimes any time I try an Aussie accent. But just understand your spiders are dangerous, and that's the important bit about this bit in this video. So, the reason that it's irrational to be scared of spiders is because, number one, they're tiny. In the UK where I am, they are harmless. Number two, they aren't going to do anything to you. They're as scared of you as you are of them. In fact, I have it on good authority that there are support groups for spiders where they all collect and they go, oh my God, there was one of the humans. There was. I was in this house. I just went in. I was cold. So I went into this house. And then she came at me with a shoe. I was terrified. I was just sitting on the wall, trying to be warm. And next thing she comes at me with a shoe, and she's huge. She's massive. And she looked at these big eyes. I mean, she only has 2 eyes. And she has only 2 arms and 2 legs. It's freaky looking. It's weird. And she comes up at me, trying to hit me with a shoe, so I ran. I didn't know where to run to, I just ran. And then she got even more hysterical, but I managed to find a wee thing, like a wee hole that led me up to her bedroom, so I just sat in her bedroom in the dark. No, honestly, they don't do that. But if there was spider therapy, I'm pretty sure that that's how it would go. But spiders tend to come into our house because they're looking for warmth, and they tend not to move. Think about it. A spider is something. This has now turned into a spider phobia video. I'm going to put this bit on Instagram later so that spider phobics can watch it. But spiders are hunt with webs. They need to eat. That's what they do. And they eat with webs. They do not want to eat you. You are too big. You are just way too big. They can't handle you. They are more looking to clean your house of midges and daddy longlegses. Daddy longlegses? Just go with it. And all of these different small creatures. Why would they move away from their web? Do you really think that there is a spider sitting in your wall now just going like that? Oh. There's Janice getting ready for bed. She's not even seen me yet. You know what I'm going to do? If she's going to bed, I mean, it's probably late. I'm a celebrity who's been on, so I suppose I should turn in as well. Do you know what? I'm going to go with her. And that's not how spiders think. Spiders, that's what you say. I'm telling you, if that spider's still in the house, it's going to follow me to my bed and it's going to walk up and over my head. It's not interested in doing any of those things. All of these things are entirely and completely irrational thinking. And this is where anxiety comes from. The thought that you're going to lose all your friends, the thought that people are going to judge you. Have you ever sat in a presentation? Maybe you have once or twice, but on the vast majority of times, have you ever sat in a presentation going, I hope they completely mess this up? I genuinely hope that this presenter here walks out and makes an absolute tit of themselves. I'm hoping that at any minute now they're going to freeze, forget what they say, and we can all laugh at them. Have you ever thought that? Of course you have not. Because if that does happen to someone, your first response tends to be caring. But that's not what the irrational thought in our head runs. The irrational thought runs that this is an adversarial audience who are all sitting there going, we just can't wait for you to go wrong. We can't wait for you to make a mistake. I am watching you, presenter. Come on, say something that I know more of than you so that I can pull you up for it in front of all these people. That just doesn't happen. Sometimes I will admit it happens in staff meetings, but that's more again because of somebody's fear, and therefore what they do is they feel a little bit insecure or inadequate, so they might try and pull you down. But that's about them, not you, although I get it. These are our irrational thoughts. So when I come back to the agoraphobia example, somebody with agoraphobia, is told that they're scared of open spaces, when actually they're not. What my question is they're scared of open spaces because what's in the open space that they worry about that's there? What's that little them that's sitting there with that thing, that big emergency button that's hitting that emergency button? What's that them worried about seeing? What's that them worried about happening? Because if we can talk to that them, then all of a sudden everything changes. However, before we get there, let's just show you how this works as a horrible loop to keep people trapped. And if you've experienced an anxiety attack, panic attack, or any type of anxiety, you're probably going to recognize what I'm about to talk about. Welcome to the world of anxiety loops. Okay, what do I mean by an anxiety loop? Well, actually what you have to understand first is that there's two different types of anxiety. There is anxiety about a thing, so like the presenting, the judgment, the spider, the whatever it is. And then what there is that can quickly follow that is anxiety about the anxiety. But we're going to get onto that. Let's do anxiety about a thing as a loop first. Now, this is exactly why many people think that their minds are trying to sabotage them when they feel anxious. Let me give you an example. Right? Imagine that what's happening is you've been invited on a night out, and let's imagine that for the sake of this, you are someone who has some sort of social anxiety. So you worry about maybe what people will think of you, maybe you think you're not good enough, something like that, right? So you get invited on a night out. Your first impression is to go, oh, that would be dead exciting, that sounds really, really nice. And lots of people get excited about the night out, and you're in the group chat, and you're like, yeah, that would be lovely. But almost immediately you can hear somewhere in the background a little voice going, but what if? What if you dress in the wrong thing? What if you wear the wrong shoes? What if they all laugh at you? You know that they are better friends with each other than they are with you. What if it is that as you go to that night out, you get the wrong place or arrive at the wrong time? What if you're late? What if you miss your bus? What if you stay out too late? What if you get drunk and end up slinging your top around your head again, singing Hey Big Spender in front of everybody again? You wouldn't want that to happen again, would you? And all of a sudden, all your joy about thinking about this night out starts to disappear because this other voice is just in your head going, I'm here, you know, I'm talking to you. This other voice is like, would you please get out of my head? Can you please just leave me alone? I'm looking forward to the night out. These people are my friends. This is rational thought, by the way. These people are my friends. I got on well with them. It's going to be really nice. I know exactly where we're going. Everything's going to be fine. You think you know where you're going, but do you really? And what happens in the run up to the night out is that these two voices start some sort of combat inside your head. But for the most part, the good voice is winning, and you're like, I'm definitely going, and you get excited about going out and choosing an outfit. But even when you're choosing the outfit, you're buying yourself some new clothes because it's a big night out. It's a special night out. You know, what's happening is that as you're going out, this wee voice, every time you walk into a changing room, is going, you do know that looks stupid. You do know that all of them are slimmer, better looking than you. All of them are just fantastically better than you. They're all going to have chosen much better clothes than you have. I mean, why do you think that you can get away with that? You know how much money they're all going to spend on their clothes, and here you are only spending that amount. Oh my God, who do you think you are? Now, all the time this wee thing is going, okay, I'll just make the best of it. And this is what it becomes. It becomes you making the best of it, trying to push this thought like out of your head like that as it tries to attack you with your not good enough thing like this all the time, and you're like, you're not good enough, and you're like, no, I am good enough, and you're just generally involved in a fight with your own head. Now it comes to the time and the night of the night out. This one is now super loud. It has tried to get you to avoid the night out at least 3 times. But every time, in a bizarre moment, every time you decide that you're not going and you go, right, that's it, I'm not going, this voice changes its tune immediately because you go, right, you know what? I'm just not going to go. I'm not going to go because it's just silly. I can't go when I'm feeling like this. And this voice then jumps in and goes, what do you mean you're not going? You do know they're all going to talk about you. What, do you think that you're better than them? Do you think that you're not going to be their friend for very much longer? That's you even more lonely. And you're like, oh my God, no, I have to go. And this voice is like now in your head, and it's like, like this chatting away to you. So you then end up going, and you can't work out what to do. You feel as if you're sabotaging yourself inside your head. Eventually you get to the night out. This thing is super loud. Are you at the right time? Are you at the right place? Your heart's beating. You're overthinking it massively. You've thought your outfit over 17 times. You even decided into terms of how you smelled. You bought 16 different types of aftershave and perfume because you didn't want to offend anybody with the way that you smell. Oh, geez, she wears that perfume or he wears that aftershave, so I can't wear that one. Oh my God, I don't want him to think he's copying. So by the time you get there, you're already like... You're like drained. You're like a person who's half the person that was looking forward to the night out with this voice. Eventually you walk in. You're absolutely knackered. You feel as if you've been sabotaging yourself for ages. You've been trying to battle this out. You've been trying to push this one away as it tries to attack you. Eventually you go in and you go, hi everybody. And this voice comes on and your big brave face comes on and you go, how are you? And what happens is you smile and you go, oh, it's brilliant to see you. Everybody goes, oh my God, you look brilliant by the way. You're looking fantastic. And... what's that you smell of? That's amazing. Whatever that is, by the way, I'll take a bit of that. And all of a sudden, this one comes out and goes, these people are my friends. They love me. They care for me. This is fantastic. I'm loving this. But that's only temporary. Because this voice has only just been distracted, because all of a sudden it starts coming back in again as you just start to have a few drinks. All of a sudden it's in there going like, are you drinking too much? You know, you're embarrassing yourself. Do you need a pee? Can you even get out of this table? Because you're going to have to ask them to move. What happens if you trip over and just all of a sudden fall flat on your face in front of this whole pub? And you're like, oh my God. And now you're sitting there bursting for a pee, unable to go for a pee because this voice inside your head won't let you up from the table to actually go for your bloody pee because you're too busy like, my God, overthinking even going to the toilet. Eventually what you do is you go, this is too much, that's it, I'm leaving. The rational voice goes, do you know what, that's it, I can't put up with you anymore, I'm out of here. And as soon as you start saying to everybody like, thanks very much folks, I've had a great night by the way, that's been brilliant, I've had such a good time, honestly it's been lovely to see you. As soon as you start walking out the door, this one goes, why are you leaving? Who do you think you are? Do you don't think you can stay for the whole night? Like, how are they... No wonder you're knackered. If that little bit makes sense to anybody, please share it with them. Because this is what happens in the anxious mind. But the thing is, let's just take a little step back. And let's look at exactly what was happening there. And it's only going to take a second for us to do that. Because what was happening there was one simple thing. That person was trying to be protected from being judged. At every single step of the way, that little voice inside their head wanted to stop them from putting themselves into a situation where they were judged negatively. So it didn't want to ruin their night out. It just wanted them to be perfect. It wanted them to be protected. It wanted them not to be hurt by people that were close to them. So what it did was at every angle, it ran all the scenarios of the things that could possibly go wrong where they might be judged. And it said, don't put yourself in that situation. I know that I characterised it as a bit of an angry voice, but really what it was saying was, going to not do that. Don't put yourself there because, oh my God, imagine if we were judged, how bad it would feel. And I promise you that this voice was more than likely created at some point in their past when that thing happened before. And they might have been really young. This could have been as young as 10, 15, 20. I don't know what age you are now. You might only be 12 now. And you might be thinking, oh yeah, when I was 10, all that 2 years ago. You know, that was a different time back then, wasn't it? Woof. Now, all I'm saying is that this has to be taught. And if you think about it, you'll more than likely find a place where that happened. I've worked with a whole heap of different things. People in their mid-40s who had experiences when they were 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, where this voice was installed, where they were judged for something and their mind went, oh, I never want to be hurt again. And this is an anxiety loop. Now, the second type of anxiety loop is even more paralysing because if that starts, so if that happens, the next time that person goes on a night out or gets invited on a night out, before they even get to be anxious about the thing, what they actually get anxious about is the thought that they might get anxious on that night out. So they're not anxious about being judged. The first anxiety is actually an anxiety about the anxiety about being judged. And all of a sudden now what they're doing is, oh my God, what if I get really anxious? What if I get really worried in the run-up? What if again I stand in another changing room worried about how much or what colour I'm wearing? What if I have to buy another 16 types of aftershave just because I'm so nervous? What happens if I walk into that pub feeling like that again? Because again, the mind is trying to protect them from this thing that makes them feel bad. 2 levels of anxiety and these horrible anxiety loops. I promise you that's what's happening in these cases is that your mind is not trying to sabotage you. It can feel like it. I mean, this might not be a night out. This might be the staff meeting. Oh, I need to say that thing. No, I can't say that thing. Oh, I wish I'd spoken up. I wish I'd gone for that promotion. I wish I'd said that in that interview. I wish I'd broken up that relationship. I wish I'd talked to that person about that thing. This could be a whole heap of things, that whatever it is that your anxiety is. But what it is it's a loop. And every single step of the way, your anxiety is trying to help you. So can I give you just one little thing just to finish this video off as a concept? What if, rather than pushing it away, and I know that what if is the anxiety question, right? But I'm going to ask it in a different way. What if rather than try push this one away when it tries to attack you like this, what if we actually stopped and went, okay, what do you want? What is it that you want? And this is what crap therapy doesn't do. This is what crap therapy misses all the time, because what crap therapy does is that crap therapy looks at that and goes, you're bad. What you need to do is you need to leave. But you're asking a part of your mind that is trying its damnedest to protect you from hurt to leave. And that's because you've not taken the time to understand it. Let's imagine, right, that these 2 voices, just for argument's sake, that one of them is that protective side of you. Now, it does it in a really crap way by running these horrible movies and that wee movie screen. It's got a big red button that it's worn out over time, and it's just constantly panicked by everything and overthinks every single thing that happens, every conversation. It walks away from conversations going, why did you say that? You shouldn't have said that. Oh my God, I can't believe you went and said that. But all it's doing again is to try and stop you being judged. So it overanalyzes them in a bid to make sure that you don't make the same mistake again. But actually you're so panicky because you're anxious about the anxiety that now you don't know what you're saying. So all of a sudden it ends up in this horrible place. So it's trying to protect you, even if it's doing it really rubbish. But then you've got this other side of you, which is what you can't understand, is you've got this other really quite confident side of you that shows up somewhere else in your life. A place where it doesn't happen. It may not be really confident, but it's chilled or it's happy. Maybe you love spending time on your own. Maybe it's like with certain friends you can totally relax. Maybe it's like this is only work and this is social, or what happens is this is social, but in work you're really confident and you're like a project manager or something like that, a leader who gets stuff done, and you're like, how can I do that? But I can't go on a night out with my team. Whatever it is for you, what if I was to say to you that actually, rather than this being some malevolent presence that's attacking you from the outside, what if I was to say to you that you're both of these? You're both a person who wants to be protected and safe, and a person that wants to be confident, courageous, whatever it might be, resilient. What if you could be both? Have you ever considered that? That actually when you look at the way that your mind is arguing with itself, that they both have what the other one needs. Have you ever noticed that what the anxious side of you needs is that what the anxious side of you needs is it needs confidence, it needs resilience, it needs the ability to keep on going. And when you look to other things that you do, you find that you've got that. It just shows up in different places. There's a video, it might not be recorded at the time of this actually coming out. There's a video coming on being a helper. This is one of the most common things where that shows up. Brilliant and resourceful and confident when it's about someone else, rubbish when it's about you. But this is just one example. There are many examples of this. So what would happen if this confidence could get into this part and say, look, we are loved and cared for. Everything's okay. We are confident. We know how to speak to people. We know how to do things. Everything's going to be fine. But in the same way, that protection and that safety could go over to the other side, where the other you could sit there and go, I don't have to be on all the time. It's okay sometimes to say no. It's okay sometimes to only stay at a staff night out for a couple of hours and just go, do you know what, guys? I had a great night. I'm about to go home. Because that's what you enjoy doing. And that's all right. That actually you are both of them. And wouldn't it be even more amazing if you were both of them at the same time? Anyway, that's a little bit about how to work with it. I'm hoping that this video, somewhere in it, something that I've said has made sense to you. What I'm trying to get to you, as I do in all of these videos here on Headstrong Minds, is that I'm trying to get you to understand that you're not broken. But what you are is you're stuck. What we want is we want this wee guy or this wee woman To be able to sit inside your head and go, fine, we're fine, everything's all right. This is cool. We don't have to worry about anything. We're all right. I've got a big red emergency button here. Don't you worry. I'll push it if I need it. But this is just a nice night out. Go and enjoy your friends. I'll watch. See, as soon as you start drinking tequila, though, I'm going to whack this button. Because really, you know where that goes. But when I whack it, rather than it being a full emergency, I'm going to whack it. And I'm going to give you a wee warning. Now, if you don't listen, see tomorrow morning when you wake up, I'm going to push the hell out of that button. I'm going to push the crap out of that. If you have another tequila night, tomorrow morning, once that tequila is worn off, because I know the tequila means that you can miss me, you just don't have to listen. I'm going to push that button all day. Just to teach you a lesson. But it probably won't teach you a lesson because the next time you go out and drink tequila anyway. But do you get my drift? What we want is that you to be able to go into work and go into a staff meeting and to be able to go, I'm a bit nervous about this, but we've taken care of everything. And to bring everything back down to a level 2 anxiety. And I promise, I don't care how big you go. I don't care where you're level 5, level 4, level 3. I don't care where you're overthinking, your anxiety, your panic's at. I promise you that that is possible with the right type of intervention. And I've told you how to do that intervention today. But as always, if we can help you or anybody else, the best way to deal with your mental health, like anything that ever goes wrong inside, is to find yourself an expert, reach out to them and let them help you. Remember, no one does this alone. I'm Brian from HeadStrong Minds. I hope that today has been an interesting journey through anxiety for you. If this video helps you or can help anybody you know, love, care for, or somebody, then please share it. Just share it far and wide. If you want to put it on your website, then please do. I'm quite happy with that. And also make sure that whatever the subscribe button is around here, we're releasing new content all the time. Hit that subscribe button and we'll keep you up to date with everything that's happening in HeadStrong Minds over the next little while. For just now, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's made some sense. You are not broken. You're just stuck. Brian from HeadStrong Minds. I'm out. See you later.